Story 1. I regret some of the things I put my parents through. I don't want to go into specifics, but I wish I had not done those things. Story 2. I stopped working for almost 4 years because of depression. I understand that I need to heal, and I truly do. However, the world has moved on while I was struggling. Now, I am unemployed and basically need to start from scratch again. Story 3. I took my ex for granted and broke her heart. The pain I caused has stayed with me for a long time. Story 4. Getting married was not the right choice for me. I should have focused on my education and personal growth instead of committing to a husband. I am happily divorced now. Story 5. Doing whatever I wanted to do, especially at the expense of others, instead of doing what was right. I didn't necessarily see the value in being a good person when I was younger. Story 6. 1. Not saving for retirement earlier. Not finishing school earlier. Staying in a relationship because I was afraid of the uncertainties. Story 7. Too many details to share, so I will keep it short and simple. Gambling. Casino gambling. Baccarat. I have been gambling since 2006 with moderate success and control. However, in the past 4 years, it has gotten out of control. This has been worsened by the loss of my grandmother and one of my sisters, as well as not seeing my son for years due to an ex-partner using the legal system against me. I have lost over $100,000 from my bank account and cashed out numerous investments, from stocks to cryptocurrency. Now, I am literally living paycheck to paycheck. I have no safety net, despite making good money, because almost every week I spend between 25% and 100% of my pay on gambling. My outlook looks bleak unless I can gain control of my emotions. If I have any unexpected expenses, I am in trouble like a major car repair. Please send me positivity, prayers, or whatever you can. I need to change. Story 8. That fitness obsession had me underweight, constantly checking my abs and tracking my food intake. I felt extremely tired. I looked like a fitness influencer but was miserable. Now, I enjoy steak and schnitzel. I gained about 10 kilograms, am at a normal weight, and eat as much as I want while working out 1 to 2 times a week. Story 9. Not learning how to approach someone I am interested in. Not learning how to exit a relationship I am no longer interested in. Story 10. Staying home instead of going to college. My mother wasn't doing well, and I let my aunt persuade me to stay for 1 more year. I lost my half scholarship for Ball State University. I loved my mother, but since she passed away, it feels like all that time was just a waste of effort. I took care of her from the time I was 18 to 29. Story 11. Having a child with a difficult partner is the worst mistake you can make in life, and there is no escaping it either. Story 12. Staying with the person who cheated on me, not choosing my career wisely at 18, and sharing my savings with my dad. Story 13. I committed felony assault due to my anger and lost my football scholarships. I was a 4-star recruit in 2014 and had 21 Division I offers. Although I was found not guilty, I ended up walking on to the local Division II school to attend anger management and meet with my probation officer. I was able to get it expunged from my record. I started 4 of 5 seasons in college and was picked up for a rookie minicamp in the National Football League. However, if I had not done that and had gone to the school I initially intended to attend, who knows what my life would have been. Story 14. For trusting people easily, I shared my story, which they used against me as a weapon to destroy my reputation in front of those who respect me. However, I am happy that they showed their true colors. Those who chose someone else over me trusted someone who didn't value my efforts or honesty. Story 15. Neglecting my dental care when I was younger has led to significant consequences. My dentist now informs me that half of my teeth require crowns due to the numerous old fillings. I am essentially facing the repercussions for every time I skipped flossing and brushing. Story 16. I started my life as a passive person. I have worked on being more assertive over the years, but it is only recently that I have consistently stood up for myself. I wish I hadn't waited over a decade into adulthood to start. Story 17. I put a lot of energy into relationships that were very one-sided. I know better now and focus my energy on friendships that provide me with love and support. I was happy to notice that my self-esteem has increased significantly. Story 18. I have been dishonest with everyone, including myself, for years. I have also committed serious wrongs against some family members and have cared too much about everything. I constantly correct others on social media for using poor language and grammar. I regret some of my hobbies as a male teenager with interests typically associated with older generations. While most people are supportive, some insist on reinforcing gender stereotypes. I enjoy crocheting and knitting, and I wish people would accept that. Story 19. I waited a long time to have my first child. I wanted to wait until I felt ready, but I never felt that way. I could have spent more years with my little buddy if I had just taken the leap. Also, going to college felt like a waste of time and money for me. Story 20. I wish I had taken more chances when I was young. I regret making so many sensible choices. It feels like my life is on a predetermined track without any choice. I made decisions that I thought were correct instead of those that would make me happy. And now I see no way to live the life I want without demolishing everything and starting over, which is difficult when I have significant debt and no direction or connections. At least I have a healthy relationship that makes me happy. At this point, I feel that my career and everything that has led me here have been so soulless and bland that I can at least apply myself to succeed, even if I dislike what I do, in order to support my partner and see her follow her dreams. I am genuinely excited for every achievement she makes, and I take comfort in being part of that. Story 21. I worry about unimportant things and feel unhappy with my current situation while dwelling on the past. Recent devastating events in my life have made me realize that all the worries I held for the past 10 to 15 years seem insignificant, as if I have wasted a large portion of my life. It felt like I was merely existing, not truly enjoying life, like a robot on autopilot. Story 22. I did not receive the mental health support I desperately needed while in college. At a small school, everyone witnessed my struggles in real time. I didn't know how to ask for help, and no one offered assistance. I was close to a breaking point. Additionally, I missed out on many great opportunities my college provided. My parents eventually allowed me to come home. I felt broken for many years afterward. Now, at 54, I still feel the effects. Story 23. I regret choosing the harder school when I was 12 years old. I became depressed and never figured out what to do with my life. I regret moving closer to my family and taking a job with my brother-in-law. I wasted 2 years and my mental health worsened significantly. I regret not spending more time with my dog. I loved her and wish I had been a better pet owner. I gave her everything I could, but I wish I had tried harder and could have given her more. During the darkest days, I sometimes regret being born or consider the final option. However, let's not dwell on that. It could always be worse. Story 24. Working too much right out of high school, I had options to travel with friends but never took those trips. Now that I am older with a family, a mortgage, and bills, it is much harder to explore the world. Story 25. I always thought I was choosing my battles and saving my energy by taking the high road. Then I looked back and realized I never actually stood behind my opinion. I wasn't choosing my battles. I was lying down and accepting things because I was scared of losing relationships that ultimately ended anyway. Stand up for yourself even if it seems foolish. If you say nothing, you'll regret it more than if you speak up. Story 26. Not taking a gap year after high school. I dislike college, to be honest, though I understand how important it is. I just wish I knew exactly where my passions lie, so studying wouldn't be so miserable. Story 27. Overplucking my eyebrows has been quite an experience. While I'll accept the consequences and learn from my mistakes, I regret falling victim to the trend of thin eyebrows popularized by Pamela Anderson. Story 28. While rabbit hunting in Wyoming, 2 hawks hovered over the valley where we were hunting. After a couple of hours with nothing to shoot at, I killed one of the hawks just for fun. I immediately felt great remorse and have cringed with guilt every time I think of it. Story 29. Being so convinced I was going to end my life before the age of 21, I have watched a lot of my life from the backseat. I never prepared for a future because I didn't expect to see one. I didn't try to go out and have fun because I thought there was no point. Now I'm 26 and trying to reclaim a life for myself, but I feel so far behind. I don't go out and do things very often because I feel like I never learned how when I was young, and now I'm too anxious to try. It's getting better, but I still feel like I've wasted years of my life. Story 30. I lost my husband last year due to a stroke. He was only 41. I regret not having been more understanding and attuned to his needs. My 4-year-old son misses him every day, and it hurts deeply. Story 31. Caring for unimportant individuals. Trying to resolve issues that are actually unnecessary and not significant. Story 32. Being a yes person means standing up for myself and saying no when necessary, regardless of the outcome. I want to follow my dreams and not conform to the standard path of working myself into the ground. Story 33. No regrets. Joking aside, I am who I am today because of the choices I made in the past. Whether they were good or bad choices, I have no regrets because they all played a part in shaping me into the man I am today. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm a net gain for society for many reasons, and I'm sure I have the lessons I learned from my past mistakes to thank for that. Story 34. Not continuing therapy when I no longer needed it was a mistake. My actual issues were so concealed that I did not receive a proper diagnosis for a long time. Story 35. Believing someone when they said they would never hurt me intentionally and struggling to accept that this was not true is what I need to confront. Story 36. Helping someone with a technology problem can be challenging. I thought I was being nice by offering assistance, but now I find myself in the role of their tech support. When things go wrong, it's somehow my fault. Feels like the worst decision ever. From now on, I will just keep quiet and say that I don't know. Story 37. I did Les Mills body pump for 4 years in a row, twice a week, every single week without breaks. Then one day I quit cold turkey, and I regret quitting that routine. I also regret having a child with the wrong person, specifically someone with poor health genetics. I should have known better, but nobody prepares us for life and big decisions, so it went the way it did. I love my child with all my heart, but that won't restore their health. I see things much more clearly now in retrospect. I definitely should have chosen a different partner in life when I was young. Story 38. I held on tightly to what my parents and society expected of me. I wanted to travel the world and work for magazines like Outside and National Geographic, but I chose safer paths instead. A decade later, following a battle with brain cancer and a divorce, I am selling my house, buying a new camera, and looking to share an apartment with a friend in Pokhara, Nepal, finally pursuing my dreams. Story 39. Getting a college degree was a waste of time and money. Knowing what I know now, I would do things differently. Story 40. I honestly regret not being intimate with more of the men I dated. They were all kind, patient, respectful, and attractive. I didn't want to be labeled negatively and was obsessed with keeping my number of partners as low as possible. If I could go back in time, I definitely would have been intimate with many more of them. At the end of your life, you are just grateful for most of your experiences. I wasted too much time feeling ashamed of my past. The double standard is frustrating. Story 41. My PhD and, especially the university where I completed it, as well as the country, have given a direction to my life that I am truly unhappy with. Story 42. The choices I made with my first ex, especially in the last few months of our relationship, led me to throw away a bachelor's degree in criminology to move back home because she did not complete nursing school. Story 43. When I was younger, between 17 and 20 years old, I was fortunate with money many times, but I was not very wise about it. The biggest instance was winning a $50,000 settlement, of which I received about $30,000 after paying my lawyer and doctors. I paid off debts and my car, but then my 18-year-old self decided to go to Disney World. I spent 3 weeks there, staying in a penthouse at the Animal Kingdom and visiting different parks every day. I do not know if it is a deep regret because I had a great time, but if I received that amount of money now, it would be a completely different story. Occasionally, I think that if I had been smarter with my money back then, I would not have struggled so much later. Story 44. Collecting other people's baggage can lead to them treating your life like trash. Story 45. I regret not seeking psychiatric help sooner. I wasn't helped until I was 22, and I have had schizophrenia since I was 4. Granted, it was my parents who didn't allow me to get help, but I could have perhaps pushed for it more. Story 46. Cocaine. From 2016 to 2018, I lost everything. I have slowly rebuilt my life to some semblance of normality. Thank goodness. Story 47. Stealing from my work. Well, technically stealing. Our self-checkout lanes at the grocery store weren't monitored by staff, or at least I thought they weren't, and I sometimes placed items on the scale at an odd angle to weigh less. It was foolish to do. I didn't need to steal. I was not destitute. I did it because I felt like I was getting away with it, even though I always felt guilty afterward. I lost a job that paid well for the work required, which I had no reason to lose, just because I didn't want to pay as much for some fruit or a hot bar item that I always regretted getting anyway. I am fortunate that my workplace cannot disclose the reason for my termination to future employers, because otherwise, I would be in serious trouble. Story 48. I love him. I wish I never did, and I always wonder if I would be happier if I hadn't become so attached to him. Story 49. I am trying to help my ex raise her child. I didn't want to be the person who says, "Not my kid." But the tensions surrounding the child led to our breakup. I loved her a lot and wish I had focused on our connection instead of trying to connect with her through her child. I wanted to be a positive influence. Story 50. When I was 11 years old, I used to make phone jokes. I would call random people and say strange things. One day, I called someone and shouted that someone had tied me to the railroad tracks and wanted to kill me, after which I hung up. Turned out that this person took it seriously and called the police. I set off all the departments in my city. Fortunately, there were no major consequences, but it was foolish. Story 51. Going to college was a complete waste of time and money. I was 18 and had no idea what I was doing. I did not understand that I was burdening myself with debt for the rest of my life. With the current leadership, I will likely never escape the consequences of a decision I made when the only thing my mind could consistently think about was distractions. Story 52. Maybe I should have told my mom to have a child so I could have a sibling. Perhaps I wouldn't have influenced her to actually do that. Story 53. To be honest, after much thought, I realized that nothing is perfect. I have made many mistakes, but those mistakes brought me to where I am now and provided great learning experiences, no matter how painful they might have been. I am in a good place right now. Story 54. I allowed myself to damage my life and future, ruin friendships, and alienate people due to my alcoholism and immaturity in my younger days. Story 55. After my dad passed away, I was often responsible for my younger siblings while my mom worked. When I was 14 or 15, I sometimes got high while watching them, but I never did it in front of them. They had no contact with any drugs and were unaware. Although they occasionally noticed a difference, they were innocent kids and I was their unique older brother, so they just thought I was acting a bit odd. They would say, "He's just being silly." It was somewhat of a joke between us at the time. I will always feel guilty about that. I was responsible for their safety, and they deserved better from me. Story 56. Drink. It's the only thing I could control that might have let me avoid cancer. I didn't even drink much. I would have been considered a light drinker. Story 57. I have made my share of mistakes in life. Those mistakes have shaped me into the person I am today. I have wonderful adult children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. I have no regrets. Story 58. I spent my 20s feeling unproductive. It took me 9 years after high school to finish college because I lacked motivation and was focused on quick money and relationships. I also struggled with my weight. I lost 100 pounds 3 times since 2012, but always ended up sick or injured, regaining the weight each time. Now that I'm older, I have more responsibilities and less time for self-care. Long working hours and caring for elderly family members consume all my time, leaving me feeling stuck. Story 59. I regret not taking my health more seriously when I was in my 20s. I'm making improvements now at 37, but I wish I had maintained a consistent, healthy lifestyle. Although I earn a good income at my job and I did not graduate from college as I attended the Art Institute, I wish I had gone to a university to experience living on campus, attending parties, and graduating with a degree. Story 60. Having a child with the wrong person is challenging. He is not in her life and chooses not to be. I wish I had provided her with a better father. Story 61. Staying with the father of my children, who admitted after 18 years that he got me pregnant on purpose to make me stay with him, knowing very well that I never wanted children. Story 62. I am currently trying to quit vaping. I have been smoking since I was 18, and now I am 22. It is a bad habit that I would not wish on anyone. Story 63. I believe that people often regret the things they don't do more than the things they do. One time, I didn't pick up my friend at midnight because I had to work. Unfortunately, she was molested while hitchhiking. Story 64. Sometimes I wonder how my life could have been different and how I could have helped my family more if I had just gotten up and worked harder. Story 65. Right now, I regret ever convincing myself that moving away from my family for a girl was the right decision. This regret is especially strong since she ended our engagement just 3 months after we signed the lease for this apartment, and we got a dog a few months ago. Story 66. Honestly reporting a significant whistleblower award and kickback fraud scheme involving employees at health insurance companies working with government officials and politicians. I am unable to find a job anywhere, and my leadership boasted about retaliation from the Central Intelligence Agency. Story 67. Nothing at this point. I am happy with who I am now, so I have to take the good with the bad. All of that bad informs who I am. I'm going through these comments, and these regrets only hold negative space if they continue to hold you back in your life and if you haven't worked through them. I've done a lot of things in my life that people may think are insane. I continue to do things that people consider insane, but I have never felt so secure and self-assured. Yes, I could have gotten better grades. Yes, I could have avoided certain situations. And yes, I could have a better relationship with my family. However, I now have insight into my behaviors and what makes me who I am, and I am a more thoughtful person. Story 68. Being in a relationship with a difficult person was a regret, but now I know exactly what I don't want in life. Story 69. I did not work as an au pair in the European Union when I was 23. I did not learn English when I was a child or a teenager. I was a hard worker. Now, I am a burned-out woman trying to learn a language for which I have no talent. Story 70. Giving my heart and my life to a girl, I genuinely thought we would last forever. However, she left me without any real explanation, and it has destroyed me. I am starting to pick myself back up, though. Story 71. Not pursuing the career I wanted when I was young because I didn't want my family to disown me. Story 72. Drinking excessively in my 20s and 30s was a mistake. Although I had my fun, I did sabotage a few good opportunities because of it. Story 73. Choosing not to have children. I am 65 now, and although I have family, I definitely regret my decision not to have kids. Story 74. I based my life decisions on a guy I was dating at the time, including choices like going back to school and pursuing job promotions. That was a poor decision. Make choices for yourself. Story 75. I could have tried harder in certain aspects. However, I don't think I would have changed much. Story 76. I am actively engaging in behavior that I will regret. I am struggling with alcoholism. I have not stayed sober for more than 3 days since I turned 21. I am currently 23 years old. I am able to function, but I need to stop before I cause myself serious harm, and it is difficult. Story 77. Leaving my hometown and my family for a job that has great growth opportunities. I'm overworked, underpaid, and barely surviving day to day, all while being away from my family. Story 78. Putting my mind and effort on what truly matters. Now, I mainly focus on family and loved ones. Story 79. I was 15 and dated my first boyfriend for much longer than I should have. He was physically abusive and a terrible person. Story 80. Getting married because it seemed like the next logical step resulted in a divorce after a year and a half, as the relationship was not working. Story 81. Staying with someone because I couldn't bring myself to end it when I should have. My ongoing lesson is learning to let go. Story 82. Dating another girl before I was comfortable with myself and out of the closet was challenging. It's hard to be a good partner to someone when you're not at ease admitting to yourself that you want them as a partner. Story 83. Choosing a flamboyant young man's life over my family and girlfriend caused hardship. I lost the love of my life in the process, all because I was too afraid of growing up and maintained a stubborn attitude of always thinking I was right. Turns out I was wrong. Story 84. Buying or leasing new cars when the car I had was still perfectly fine is a long story involving many facets of life. Now, I drive a 30-year-old Mercury and hope to outlive her. Story 85. No regrets. The future looks bright once you let go of the negativity that made you give up on your dreams. Story 86. So far, not much. I find that as long as I live in line with my values and what I believe to be right, it is hard to end up regretting things. Story 87. Being involved with a married person who I later learned was a chronic cheater made me realize that I wasn't special. I was just another notch. Although it was a very short period of time, looking back, I see how weak-minded I was and how low my self-esteem was. I realized I had a lot of maturing and self-reflection to go through. This experience helped me understand who I didn't want to be, but I regret it completely. Story 88. Driving without my seatbelt on. I experienced type 1 hypoglycemia and rolled my car 4 full turns down an embankment. I was dazed and confused, got out of my car, and started walking around. I shattered my L3 vertebra and required 3 surgeries. I think about this every day of my life. That occurred over 25 years ago. Story 89. I pushed my ex away because I assumed things I never discussed with her or had certainty about. I'm sorry she left, but I know she is better off now. I should have spoken my mind and communicated. Still, I regret that dearly. Story 90. I have been too self-righteous in my past romantic relationships. I could have been less emotional and more grounded in reality. I was often in love with potential. Never do that, everyone. Pay attention to the behavior. That is who they truly are. Story 91. I regret feeling ashamed of who I am. I have come a long way to accept and love myself, but I feel like I have held myself back in life. When it comes to making friends, finding love, and making career choices, I feel uncertain about my current situation. Story 92. Not figuring out what I wanted to do career-wise when I was younger snowballed into not having a family, as I ideally wanted to be a young parent. Now, a few years away from 40 and working a job that does not fulfill me, it feels deflating. My prime years have just gone by, and in the present day, I do not feel like an adult. Story 93. I focused so much on getting high grades that I missed out on the high school and university experience. Story 94. I'm not comfortable in my own skin and wish I had chosen a different career path. I also regret not asking that girl out. Oh well, hindsight is 2020. Story 95. I am using wood instead of composite material on my deck. I spend a lot of time power washing and staining it every year. Story 96. I spent a decade at what I thought was my dream job. I worked long hours and dealt with poor management and challenging coworkers, believing it was the best I could achieve. It turns out that a better opportunity is out there. Story 97. Always make time. Work hard while you are young and achieve goals, such as getting a driver's license, a nice car, and some stylish clothes. When I was a teenager, I wasted time being lazy and smoking cannabis. Story 98. I regret trying to take my life by consuming over 200 different tablets, including pain medication, depression medication, and sleep aids. I woke up after being in a coma for 7 days and on life support. I was married, and our boys were only 4 and 6. I also regret getting divorced. Story 99. Something happens in front of you, and you ask yourself, should I speak up? But you don't, and then it haunts you for a long time, wondering if you should have done something. Story 100. I waited a long time to get my driver's license. COVID-19 happened about 5 months before my 16th birthday, but I could have obtained it earlier. I have been a car owner since September, and I'm never going back. Story 101. Wasting time in dead-end jobs is frustrating. It may sound cliché, but if you have a dream, pursue it. Even if you fail, you're better off trying than not taking action. Story 102. I no longer regret anything. However, I dislike having found myself in that position. I believed the lies and promises from my family, especially from my mother, only to discover that I was misled for selfish reasons. I was exposed for no reason because that is the trait of my parent. My family has been selfish towards me, enjoying my struggles when I needed their help. I am neutral now. I no longer care much about what has happened in my life or past. Even when it comes to relationships with my ex, I was genuinely in love with her, but she wasn't with me. It hurt a lot to accept that, but I eventually did. Today, I am humbled and resilient in my life. I know what I want, and I am building it my own way. I succeed in the things I focus on. I no longer engage with what does not want me or what envies me. I have regretted many things and didn't realize how much envy and jealousy people have directed toward me. So I keep to myself. I am a good person, and I have always known it. This is why I want to do good in this world. My past has taught me so much about living in it. Sometimes, when you are in a negative position, you just have to keep your head up and remain neutral. I have been in plenty of negative situations, and most have taught me how to turn that into strong positivity, even when things don't go as planned. Story 103. I regret not trying harder with my first love. Looking back, there are things I should have done better and things I should have done more of. I don't know if it's a warning sign to keep her in the back of my mind. Part of me wants to try again, but I know it will never happen, which is difficult for me to accept. Story 104. Going to college, specifically a private college, has put a significant financial burden on me. My dad has put his name on my student loans, even though he barely makes ends meet himself. Not only has this affected me financially, but if I can't keep up with the payments, they will come for his Social Security, which he desperately needs. I am 38 years old, and I am ashamed to admit that part of me will feel a little relieved when he passes, as at least then his loans will be void. If I dwell on this too much, it keeps me up at night. After he does pass, there is a possibility that I may leave the country, so I at least have a chance to retire someday. Story 105. For me, it's not about what I did, but about what I didn't do. That would be staying in the band. Story 106. Getting into IT in 1998. During my first job, 2 experienced colleagues advised me to reconsider my career due to the industry's shift towards outsourcing to India. Story 107. Quitting my well-paying job 4 years ago to pursue a full-time role as a cryptocurrency investment advisor only for the Securities and Exchange Commission to start a crackdown on cryptocurrency and any related companies has been challenging. I have been trying to re-enter my old profession, but vacancies are extremely rare. Meanwhile, the cryptocurrency market has struggled, despite having supportive leadership in office and a more favorable stance from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Story 108. I remember the first time I heard about Bitcoin. It wasn't even $1 for one at that time, and I had hardware I could have dedicated to mining it early on. Oh well. Story 109. Forcing your relatives into playing the roles they want to claim is not necessary. If they do not wish to act like a family, that is acceptable. It is time to find your true family. Story 110. I didn't put enough effort into the relationships that matter. I got sidetracked and didn't make my significant other my priority. Then I found myself single again a few times, and each time was gut-wrenching. Story 111. Not taking the chance of having fun and being too worried about what others see or think. Have fun. This is your life, and it's way too short. Story 112. Procrastinating and doubting myself. I am well past it now, but I sometimes wonder what could have been. Story 113. I regret the mistakes I made. I regret not doing things more than doing them at my age. You don't get second chances. Story 114. I hesitated to approach the woman I was really attracted to. I disliked the possibility of rejection, but now I've decided to go for it. Story 115. I didn't really think about what I wanted. I tend to overthink things, yet I messed it up. It may sound selfish, but that's how I feel. Story 116. Smoking is honestly a gateway to other substances. While I am sober, I regret ever starting in the first place. Story 117. Nothing, absolutely. The mistakes I made and everything I wished I could have done have brought me to where I am today. I wouldn't be the person I am now if I hadn't made some of the poor choices I made years ago. Story 118. Being a people pleaser, not standing up for myself, and not leaving my mother sooner or ever calling the authorities. Story 119. Studying an art degree only to pursue a completely different career path can be a valuable life experience, but it can also feel like a waste of time and may lead to financial burdens. Story 120. When I was in my 20s, I thought a good relationship would fix me and that I would be better if someone loved me. However, when you have trauma, it doesn't work that way. I only found more pain and problems because I hadn't worked on myself. Many years and 2 divorces later, I discovered everything I can do on my own. I learned how to be alone and found pride in how far I've come despite it all. In my case, it has been beneficial for me. I might let myself try dating again, but I am not sure. Story 121. Spending so much of my life trying to please a manipulative person only to end up with lasting emotional damage. I am working on it, but it is challenging. Story 122. I regret not learning how to be intentional. Measuring productivity is a skill. Learning to be intentional is a science. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.